Hey guys, Parfax here. Today we are bringing you the other video when it comes to your starter builds for New World. All right, let's get started. So I'm here on New World Fans. We're bringing you another starter video. Now, before the last video I did, if you haven't seen it, make sure you check it out. The link in the description will be down below. But we did two ranged builds. We have the fire and ice build. We have Ice Tempest, Builder, got those cool ice trees. And then we went with the fire staff. And then also we went with the bow and the spear. I know the spear isn't technically ranged, but it has some ranged, tendencies to it. And it just goes really good with the bow, and they're fairly generic builds, but they're very good for starting if you have never played New World before. You don't know what you want to play, they're a very great place to start. Now, we're going to be bringing you two melee builds this time. Now, there will be one build that I will not be putting out, and that'll be a healer build, and mainly that is just because that I don't really play healer, and I don't want to give you guys some jank information. I know there's sometimes people have been like, oh, you shouldn't take that skill or this passive. Everything is subject to change and people's opinions, but I'm just giving you guys a great place to start when you want to play either ranged or melee. Now, for today's build, we're going to do one melee DPS build, and we're going to do how I'm going to level my tank. So before we get right into those two builds, I want to make sure that I let you guys know that I will be streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/Parfaxgaming. We'll be doing some giveaways, especially on Thursday. Check me out. I will be streaming 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. I might go live a little bit early, but make sure you check it out. We're going to be doing giveaways. It's going to be a ton of fun. Just click the link down below. Click it. Follow. We're going to be doing a bunch of stuff. Also, I'll be streaming as soon as the game goes live. My stream will be up. I'll be streaming for who knows how long. I'll be streaming every day. Man, it's going to be great. New World is almost launched. It will be under 24 hours from the time this video is live. That New World will be launched, and we'll be able to play it. I am stoked. How about you guys? But all right, let's get to it. All right, so we are here on my first build. It is going to be the Axe Hatchet. I know it's very standard, very meta, but there's a reason why it's meta, because it's so good. It is good for PvE, PvE, or PvE, PvP, pretty much everything. Now, first, we're going to talk about the attribute points. And just like in the other videos, we want to get this point into our constitution as fast as possible. Now, you can obviously put a point into all of whatever your main stat is that you're going to be going at first. Right off the bat, they'll give you a sword and shield. You'll get a bow. And then it's pretty much up to you to kind of gather whichever weapons you can find or craft them. So just start stacking points into whatever of your main weapon you want to do. So for this build, we're going to do strength. But you might not pick up an axe or a hatchet right off the bat. Maybe let's say you want to try out the bow while you're just leveling really quickly. Then put points into your dexterity and just keep swapping them, because you can respec for free all the way up to level 20. So just keep swapping out your points to whatever your main damage points are, all the way up until we can put 50 points into Constitution. As soon as we can put 50 points into Constitution, I am slapping that in there, because all health consumables are 20% stronger, are absolutely insane. I love this passive, not to mention you are getting health while you're just stacking Constitution. It's really, really good. Now for this build, we're going to have a split between strength and Constitution. Now with this, I didn't put gear in here. If I were to go ahead and put gear in here, we would have a lot more of these passives, and our tree would look a little bit different. Typically, the rule of thumb when you're doing something like this is you want to do 2 and 1. So you want to do a 2 stack on one of the two passives, or one of the two attributes, and then 1 on the other. If you want to go a more brawler kind of, not tank, but just really beefy defense, you go 2 for every 2 points you put into Constitution, you'll put 1 into strength. Or if you want to go more sort of glass cannony and just very kind of berserk play style, you'll put 2 points into strength, 1 point in Constitution. Now, having said that, you don't literally go, all right, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. What this means is, we'll get 50 points in Constitution, right? Maybe we're going the 2 in strength, 1 in Constitution. Then the next 100 points we'll put into strength. Once we get that there, we'll then start putting points in our Constitution, because what you're doing is you're going to hit these different point systems here. These are basically breakpoints, where these are passives you'll get for hitting that. And you'll still get your stats while you go over these points, but you won't get the passives until you hit each of the 50 mark points. So you just want to go for each one of these every time, no matter what you're going for. You don't want to go like 75 here, 78 here. That's just wasted. You would then just put 100 into one of the two and then have 50 in the other. Does that's what it's kind of a little bit confusing, but just look at these as passive points. Once you reach this point, you'll get a passive point, and these are stronger than any individual like attribute point. So you just get those points and go from there. I prefer the 2 in a Constitution, 1 in the Strength. If you're doing open world, PvP, PvE, PvP, I think this is the overall best case. Now, if you're doing group dungeons and stuff like that, definitely stacking your Strength is going to be good. You still want to get, I think, at least 100 into Constitution. You do get a little bit of bonus for going here, but honestly, if you're going to go just straight PvE, I'd put 100 points into Constitution and then stack the rest into Strength. Now, let's go down here and we're going to look at our passives. Now, before we start going into the tree and how we kind of spec it out and how I would spec it out as I go, we're going to talk a little bit about how you actually spec the tree out. I'm probably going to put a video out about this, and if I do, whenever it comes out, I will put a link in the description down below. But we're going to go over it really quickly. Make sure you use these as rows. So what I mean here is picture all these trees as row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So in order to put something into row 2, we have to have a point into row 1. So let's say I wanted to go down here to Raging Torrent, which is row 3. I can't go Berserk in the Raging Torrent. I have to put a point somewhere in row 2. Now, if I go Critical Throw, I cannot go over here to On the Hunt because each tree is different. But if I want to go down a row, I do have to put a point into the previous row, no matter where it is. I can go Feral Rush for Raging Torrent, or I can go either one of these 3 passes, but there's no way to skip it. The only exception to that rule is your ultimate ability. Each skill tree will have an ultimate ability, and you have to have 10 points in the tree before you can spec into it. So you have to put 11 points into that tree before you can even have the ability. 10 points here, and then you can put 1 point into your ultimate ability. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's start talking about Hatchet. Now for the Hatchet, everybody who's played the Hatchet knows there's one skill that the Hatchet is absolutely known for, and it is Berserk. This will be the first point you put into the tree. It is absolutely insane. And it itself, you might look at it and be like, well, that's not that great. But once we start going down and looking at these passives that you get while in Berserk, you'll see that this is absolutely crazy. The first point we're going to put in Berserk. Second point, we're going to put On the Hunt, just increase our movement speed by 20%, because we are going to literally run through the content. This is going to make it so easy. You're going to outrun all of the people that you're with because you are just running super fast. Next, we have a Berserking Refresh. We're probably going to put a point into here next too. It's just going to give you a lot of health. We're going to get a lot of sustain in your tree. It's going to be really good. Then I'm going to put point into Raging Torrent. And this is essentially just 4 really quick attacks that it's going to do. You can augment it up, but we're not even going to take that. And the next point, and probably one of the best single points in the tree, is actually Relentless Fury. This is insane for PvE and PvP. Because after successful heavy attack, gain Empowered, granting 30% damage increase for 3 seconds, or after 4 attacks. So what you can do, if you want to just do massive burst, you hit your Berserk, obviously, then you fully charge heavy attack instantly into a Raging Torrent. Now, once you get it down, you can actually animation cancel a little bit of the last of the part of the heavy attack and do Raging Torrent. Now, make sure you actually get your heavy attack off before doing Raging Torrent, because there is a sort of a split second to where you're not going to get the heavy attack off, and you can actually just undercut it. But make sure, well, as soon as you get it off, you can hit the Raging Torrent, and you're just doing absolutely burst damage. Once we've got that, the next point I'm going to put into Feral Rush. Now, this isn't a skill that I'm going to use at the end game. It's okay. It's not a skill I particularly care for that much. We have a really better utility skill on the other side of the tree, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But this skill is pretty good while you're leveling, and it gives you just a little bit extra damage. You can also do stuff like a fully charged heavy attack into a Feral Rush as well. Next, we're going to just put a few points down here. We're going to probably go for, you can kind of go for whatever you want here at this point. If you want to start getting to your, your good infected throw, what you can do is you put points into, maybe go down here, go Berserking Purge, Uninterruptible Berserk. Okay, these are pretty cool passes, which we're going to get, but triggering Berserk removes all crowd control effects. Awesome. And then while in Berserk, your attacks are uninterruptible. During Berserk, you cannot be staggered. This is insane. This is the reason why this is just crazy. Berserk just gets literally everything. You can't be CC'd. Your attacks can't be interrupted. You get health back. You move faster. You deal more damage. You're just God mode when this is up. So now that we have this all filled out, we have Feral Rush, we have Raging Torrent, and we have Relentless Fury. Next, we want to start working on this tree. You can do this one of two ways. On the very next point, you can respec out of, Feral Rush and maybe Uninterrupted Berserk. Or before you even get all the way down here, you can just respec out of Berserking Purge, respec out of Feral Rush. Instead of putting a point into here to Uninterruptible Berserk, we can then just put our 3 points down here into the tree. Now, if you go over here, putting a point into Critical Throw does absolutely nothing if you have no way to throw your axe. So if you want to put maybe a point into Aim Throw first and then Critical Throw, that's kind of cool, but it really doesn't do anything. And this skill right here just is a style point skill. This does almost no damage. So now that we have 3 points, we can either respec out of here or, you know, wait an extra 3 points. We're gonna go to Critical Throw, Rejuvenating Crits whenever, or successful critical hits with light attacks, or Aim Throw regenerates 10 stamina, which is great. This is gonna help us over here as well. And then we're gonna put a point into Infected Throw. Throw an axe that deals 150% weapon damage and triggers disease and weakens targets for 5 seconds. Then it says here that disease reduces targets' healing efficiency by 30%, and weaken reduces targets' damage by 10%. This is great in PvE and PvP, especially when you're doing like large-scale sieges, where the hatchet is very not designed for large-scale PvP. This can kind of make it very, very good for large-scale PvP. This is great in PvE as well. You're going to weaken the targets, so you can make your tank take less damage. If you're just out there soloing, this is going to make them take less damage. You don't have to worry about a whole lot about it healing, but that weekend is pretty insane. This is going to be a nice big shot at people. This does a lot of damage. It has a great debuff. And then we're going to go down and we're going to get increased duration of disease and weakened to 8 seconds on targets below 30% health. So a little bit extra to the sort of like execute, but a little bit of, you know, debuffer. Then creates a 3-meter disease AoE on impact that lingers in place for 3 seconds. This is great. This is what's going to make this skill absolutely pop. It is going to be, that's a small circle, but it's the reason why in big scale PvP this ability is useful, and it's just really, really good. After that, we're just going to start filling out our passives kind of how you wish. What I would do is I'd probably go down here to Defy Death. I would stack as many points in here. If you really don't want to get this point right off the bat, you can just stack all of your points into this tree, get Feral Rush, get down here, get to Defy Death as soon as possible. And it's just when you receive lethal damage, avoid death, reduced to 0.0 HP, and gain immortality for 3 seconds, 75-second cooldown. This is essentially just, oh, I'm not going to die for 3 seconds with a 75-second cooldown. And this is pretty insane. This is one of the best passives on the Berserk tree, which it should be because, you know, it is an ultimate ability. And then, of course, we have, if the target's below 30% health, light and heavy attacks do 20% more damage. Nice little execute there. Against all odds, increase base damage by 10% for every enemy within 5 meters. And then we have, when hitting an enemy while your health is below 30%, remove all bleeds, burns, and poison dot effects from the player. That's awesome. 60-second cooldown. Then when we go over here to the other tree, we have Exploitation. All attacks deal 15% additional damage to targets with an active debuff, which we'll get active debuffs from our Infected Throw. And then we have Adrenaline Rush, which is really good. Dodging within 2 seconds of triggering an ability consumes 25% less stamina, which is insane. And then we have Light Attacks and Aim Throws regenerate 10 stamina when hitting a target with an active debuff. So we're going to get a lot of benefit here from hitting an Infected Throw. We're getting a lot of utility, which is the reason why I go Infected Throw over really just stacking Feral Rush. Also, if we stack Feral Rush, see, let's see how many points we have over here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 points. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have to get everything in this tree, and you technically can, but some of these abilities just aren't nearly as good as getting our extra stamina back, so we can start dodging more. We have a huge debuff over here. I played with Feral Rush. I actually, when I played the Hatchet, mainly went Feral Rush, but Infected Throw is just objectively better. So play it how you will. We're not going to put any points here into our Raging Torrent. You can if you want to. Hitting target with Raging Torrent grants haste, increase movement speed by 20%, which is cool. But on this side of the tree, we're getting a bunch of extra stamina anyway, which can be used to block or dodge, which is really good. And then we have Press Light Attack at the end of Raging Torrent to deal a final attack, dealing 120% weapon damage. This is just kind of bad because we have a hard enough time getting the 4 attacks off from Raging Torrent anyway. Having an extra attack at the end really doesn't do anything for us unless we're doing maybe some PvE where the boss is just, we're hitting the boss in the back and he's never going to attack us. So this skill's really bad. I've tried it out many times and it's just not good. Now that we've talked about the hatch, we went through it, let's talk about the Great Axe. Now there's a couple things about the Great Axe that I don't see people do, and especially early, you can really do a lot with this tree. Now, first we're going to start off by, we're going to put a point into Reap. It's a pretty good passive. I like it. Some people like to do, where's it at? I think it's heavy attacks with a great axe, pull foes closer to you. I don't find this passive really that good. I've seen a lot of people use it, but in testing, I just don't think this passive is worth a point at all. Your heavy attack hits very short range anyway, so pulling them closer to you really doesn't do anything for you. You have a lot of movement skills on the great axe, and especially with the hatchet, you really don't need this at all. I think this is a complete crap point that people take. So let's talk a little bit about especially Reap and Charge. So these two abilities especially do absolutely insane with animation canceling. Now, I will have footage of this. I wish I would have recorded it. I'll have to check. I might have some footage of it, and if there is, you will see it on the screen right now, which I probably don't. I have to go back and look. But what you can do with Reap, and especially Reap and Charge, is animation cancel it with your light attacks or heavy attacks. So once you get the passive that gives you grit on heavy attacks, this becomes even more insane. So essentially what you can do, even at the beginning, is you'll do a fully charged heavy attack, and as soon as your heavy attack lands, you Reap. This is a ton of damage. We're gonna go over one of the best combos in the game, and it's gonna come with this weapon particularly. And when we get to that point, we'll talk more about this animation canceling, but we'll talk about why Reap or the Charge can do it too. So we're gonna take Reap, then we're gonna go to Charge right down there, right off the bat. Then we're actually gonna stay in this tree until we can respec all the way to Gravity Well. So we're gonna get on Reap, after we get Charge, we're gonna go under Reap's passive. We're gonna get the range is now 8 meters. Then we're actually gonna go to Execute. Now this skill is not particularly that good. It can be fine, but the problem is the animation for it is a little bit too long. So in PvP, this is almost completely useless. And in PvE, it's good if you have a tank. This ability can do a lot of damage, but we're really not going to take it. Or at least we're going to respec out of it once we can. All right, so then we're probably going to go to Frenzied Momentum. Charge now deals 120% to 140% weapon damage based on how far you traveled. And now that we have 2 extra points, on the next point, we're going to respec out of Frenzy Momentum, and we're going to respec out of Executioner, and we're going to go to the other side of the Mauler tree. We're going to do Mauler's Resolve. If you get hit while holding a Great Axe and below 50% health, gain 40 stamina, which is great. Then we're going to go to Enduring Strike. This adds grit to Great Axe heavy attacks and grants 20% damage reduction while heavy attack grit is active. This is just pretty insane. You can use this offensively or even defensively. If you have somebody charging up for a hit and you really just need to mitigate the damage, you can just start swinging a heavy attack and just get that damage reduction. If you can't, maybe let's say you're out of stamina, you don't want to block it, you don't have any stamina to block it, you can just use this to start getting yourself a 20% damage reduction, or you can just use it for offensive purposes as well. Then with that next point, since we've got the next point after respecking, we're going to go to Gravity Well. Throw an axe to create a vortex that pulls foes into the center for 3 seconds. Ends with a damage burst, dealing 125% weapon damage range for 10 meters. This is pretty insane. This is going to do a lot of damage. This is going to make your target stay right on. You can stay right on top of them. This is going to make the PvE mobs. It's going to group them together. It's just going to do pretty much everything you want in the skill. It's pretty insane. After that, we're just going to start filling in passives. I'm probably then going to jump back over to the Reaper tree because we're going to try to get our Bloodlust passive as soon as possible. So we're just going to start filling out the rest of the tree, kind of go how you want to. I do like the Unpredictable Strike. Once we can get down to it, we'll have to put a point into Hunger, which is heal yourself for 30% of damage done by Reap. So that'll be the next point you put in there. That's actually a pretty good ability because this is just going to give us some extra sustain, sort of like the Berserk tree on the Hatchet. And then we're going to go down here to Unpredictable Strike. During your charge, you may press right mouse button to execute a swing, dealing 140% to 165 weapon damage based on how far you traveled. Then we're going to get Fatal Attraction. After you pull, do a spin attack, deal 150% weapon damage. And then we're just going to go in and fill out the rest of our passes. We're going to get Critical Conditioning. We're going to get Keen Edge. And then we're going to get Feed. Now, the reason why these are so good, and I don't hear anybody talking about them, is because, like I said, the animation canceling. So what you can do for a big burst, and we'll talk about the ultimate here in a second after we talk about these, because we really want the Unpredictable Strike and the Fatal Attraction. Once we get these, our burst is absolutely crazy with the Great Axe. So what you can do is you heavy attack. We're going to heavy attack to start, right? So we're going to heavy attack, And as soon as we land our heavy attack, we're going to animation cancel the last part of the heavy attack into a reap. That reap, then we're going to, after you pull to another attack, so we're going to go heavy attack, animation cancel, reap, instantly into a spinning back fist, into a light or heavy attack, and instantly into a charge with another right mouse button, and we're going to do another execute swing. This is insane, and it is a lot faster than you think. Because you can animation cancel the heavy attacks, or that you can even do the light attacks. I like the light attacks a little bit better on the charge, just because you're getting such a boom, 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 boom. You get so much burst damage. Early game, if you just do the heavy attack reap without anything else, it'll almost one-shot a lot of mobs. And then when you get the charge, you can do heavy attack, reap, light attack, charge, and almost any mob around your level is dead. It is such crazy burst damage. You just wait till you find out, and then you start adding in the back fist and the little mini execute from the charge. It's insane. I will use the charge from right on. It is actually better to use your charge while standing on top of them. Now, I know you don't really get a whole lot of extra damage from your frenzied momentum, but we still are going to use this as a gap closer to catch people. You can do things like gap close, hit him with your frenzied momentum, do maybe your execute if you can get it off, then you can just auto attack, reap him in with the spinning back fist. You can also hit him with the gravity well, have him stay there. You can use your charge to get up to him, do your execute, auto attack, reap, back fist. It's so much burst damage that this weapon has. It's just absolutely bonkers. And as much as people like the great axe, I haven't even seen that many people doing these animation cancels on this weapon, which is absolutely terrifying because of how powerful this weapon is. So now that we've talked about the skills, let's talk about the ultimate here. It is Bloodlust. You move 30% faster and deal 15% more damage while looking at the foe within 15 meters. This is just going to give you the way to run up on people. It's going to give you more damage. There's just nothing this passive really doesn't do. We have our Berserk passive, which gives us movement speed. We have Charge, which gives us a gap closer. We have our Gravity Well that keeps it in place. Now we have Bloodlust, which just allows us to stick on our target. This class just sticks on the target. There's no getting away from it. You can be a light armor user unless maybe you're a light armor fire staff and rapier, where you can do your little animation cancels, get your rapier moving, get your dash from the fire staff. Even then, I don't know if you're getting away from a great axe hatchet person. It is absolutely crazy. It's insane. It is just so much fun. Wow. So this video is going way longer. That's just because I was just kind of spooning over the great axe. And we're now going to go into one of the builds I possibly running, which would be my tanking build. Now, I didn't mention before, but you can use either heavy armor or medium armor in the last build that I put up. I prefer probably medium armor, get a little bit more movement. Heavy armor is almost, it's almost just objectively better. And we will talk about reasons why in a video coming up soon. But armor really doesn't matter when it comes to your iframe. Your iframe is exactly the same. So the only thing is movement. And with the, especially Hatchet Great Axe, you have so much movement that it makes up for the fact that you're in heavy armor. So pick what you will. I prefer medium armor over heavy, but it definitely is very viable to do a heavy armor build, especially with those two. And if you're doing PvE and go heavy, you'll just never die and just be absolutely crazy amounts of damage still. Next, we're talking about my tank build. I'm running tank. If you want to watch any tank gameplay, just come watch the stream, and we were going to be leveling up as a tank. Now, I haven't decided whether I'm going to go Warhammer or I'm going to go Great Axe, but since we already have a Great Axe, we're going to put the Warhammer in here. But if you want to go tank, you can literally just take that tree from the last one and you can put it into this one. So if you want to go tank and with the Great Axe, just swap the Great Axe tree for this one. But I make a Warhammer. I think Warhammer is a little bit better for straight tanking, but you can go with each one. So here we're going to basically stack our Constitution. We're getting most of our points into Constitution. We're putting a little bit into Strength. We still want a little bit extra damage. We're probably going to put 50 points there. We do have another 80% damage reduction when at full health. That's an okay passive, especially if a healer in PvE. This can be pretty insane if you're just trying to mitigate your damage. And then the last passive here, 20% duration on stuns, roots, spells. That's not something I really care about. It is very good, but you do get a little bit diminishing returns when you start stacking just one set of resources or one attribute. So putting points into strength is just going to make things, you can get extra taunt by dealing more damage. Now, we're not going to be getting our taunting damage, our taunting just by our damage, because obviously we're not going to deal as much damage as our other people. But putting 50 points into strength is still really good. All right, so we're going to talk about the sword and board. And this video is super long. I'm sorry, but I really want to go in depth with a lot of these to kind of help you out. And again, remember the whole tree thing, rows, blah, 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 right? All right, so starting off, the first point we are going to put into is Whirling Blade. This is just a pretty good defensive ability, and it's a lot of fun. So pretty self-explanatory. Next, we're actually going to put a point into Reverse Stab. Now, it is a skill that we are not going to use, and you can swap out these two if you really want to. You can get one of these passives, but I do like the Whirling Blade. And we're going to put here because as we're leveling, we don't really need to go straight tank. We're going to be wanting to do some extra DPS. We're going to be leveling up our sword. So we're going to have to try to do as much damage at the beginning of the game as possible. And let's be honest, we really don't need to even tank at all unless we're in dungeons or doing like some pretty hard content. So we're going to put points there. The next point we're going to put in is going to be Leaping Strike. Yes, we're going to go down the Swordmaster tree. We're going to grab all three of these before we even start going over to this tree. Then the next point we're going to put in will be over here to grant additional physical armor. This is just an insane passive. This is just, I don't know what to say about this. It's just great. I mean, 15% physical armor. What more can you say? Then after that, when we get our next point, what we can do, if you want to go into the more tanky route, is you can respec out a Leaping Strike and reverse stab here, and we can go a point into Shield Bash and a point into Defiant Strike. Now, this depends on what you are doing. If you're just trying to tank, this is the route you will go. If you are just leveling, you basically just want to fill out this tree before you even go over here. You can put a point into Sturdy Shield. This is just a great overall passive. But if you're just leveling solo, I would suggest staying over here, getting as much damage as possible until you start getting a group and start doing dungeons. Because out in the world, doing regular, questing and stuff like that, you don't want to put a bunch of points here into your tanking abilities because we'll be able to survive with what we have, and we just want to do more damage. So keep that in mind. After that, we're just, if you want to be, once you get to the first dungeon, which is level 25, then that's when you want to swap over and you want to do Shield Bash and Defiant Strike. I hate this ability right here. I know a lot of people use it, but I absolutely despise Shield Rush. It has some pretty good abilities, as on successful hit, all enemies within 5 meters gain weakened. And then we have on successful hit, all enemies within 5 meters of you are slowed for 4 seconds. Slow reduces movement speed. I personally hate this skill. I don't like it. It's clunky. If they made this to where it was instant, you don't have to charge it up. It literally is just you hit it and boom, sort of like the charge from the Great Axe. I think this ability would be fun, and I would use this ability over my Whirling Blade. But because it's not, it's a charge. This ability, in my opinion, is absolutely garbage. Yes, the weekend is absolutely insane, and it is something you really want, but I am not willing to have such a clunky skill on my bar for it. Then we're just going to fill out our passives. So we have reduced damage taken from all magical types by 10%. We have when you block an attack in 10%, fortify for 5 seconds. Stamina damage is reduced by 15% when blocking a ranged attack with a shield. This just means it's going to take 15% less stamina. Get that little extra stamina damage, sorry. And then we're going to go down your health. This ability right here is insane for PvE and PvP. So let's read this. For 8 seconds, reduce the incoming base damage from attackers by 30%. For 8 seconds. This have a 45-second cooldown. Then, of course, you can taunt with it. Then we have, if your health is above 50%, damage reduction is increased by 20%. So 50% damage reduction. Cool. And then gain 15% of your max health when this Defiant Strike ends. Wow. This ability is just crazy for PvE and PvP. Because if we weren't taking this for PvP, for instance, maybe we would take Reverse Stab. Or, I mean, I really do like Leaping Strike, especially since the rework of it. But this ability is just crazy. Now you can go a little bit more damage if you want to go damage side tanking. But it's just great. This ability is so good. Then we have our Shield Bash, which is another taunt. 50% weapon damage. It stuns foes in front of you for 2 seconds. And then it greatly increases the threat by 100% more damage. Cool, cool, cool. We want that. And then we get an extra in 1 second stun if we were to take this point, which is the reason why we didn't. Yes, going from 2 to 3 is pretty good. It's technically a 50% increase on our stun duration, but we have some just passives we really like. Let's talk about those passives now. So let's go over here and talk about Whirling Blades. Just a nice little AoE damage. We have Whirling Blades causes a nice little rend, and then Whirling Blades reduces cooldowns of the abilities by 10% for each enemy hit. Now, some people are like, why would you take Whirling Blades as a tank, especially over Shield Rush? Well, here we can reduce our cooldowns by 10% for each enemy we hit. So we're in dungeons, we might be able to hit 3-4 mobs at a time. That's a huge damage reduction. That allows me to taunt more often. So that's the reason why I don't feel bad at all for not taking Shield Rush. I've seen people use it. I honestly think it is as well a trap skill, especially because other classes can put weaken. Like we had the Hatchet, the last build has a weaken. Yes, we won't be able to keep it up 100% of the time. And 10% damage reduction is absolutely nothing to scoff at, especially when we can kind of rotate our damage reduction. We have our Defiant Stance, we can have our weaken. But reducing our cooldowns is almost as good because we can get our Defiant Strike up a lot quicker. So we talked about stamina damage reduction. We talked about all incoming healing and regeneration increased by 10%. I mean, what more to say about that is literally just hell yeah. So then we have critical strike chance increased by 10%. We're going to be doing a little bit of damage here. We do want to do some damage. We don't want to be just a brain dead tank tries to soak up all the damage, because New World's a little bit different in the fact that I can't just go taunt, hold block. That is not how New World works when it comes to tanking. Then we have Free Injustice. Successfully hitting with a heavy attack causes you to lose 1 debuff. This is strictly for, when I have a lot of debuffs on me. If I have a chance, I can fully charge heavy attack and take a debuff off. When you block an attack, gain a stack of Empower, granting 3% damage increase for 5 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. This is just going to help us in PvE hold taunt, and in PvP just give us some more damage. And then on a critical gain, 20% haste for 5 seconds. This is part of the reason why we have this, because we want haste. We want to be able to move, because like I said, we're not just going to be able to hold block the entire time. And we still need, if you're not just straight tanking, and we'll have a build eventually just for group tanking, because it is a little bit different than sort of this general starter build. But we want haste for 20% haste for 5 seconds is great. That's great. And that's just going to help us get it with the precision. And then we have, while health is full, deal 15% more damage. We have a lot of things that are going to help us get up there. We have damage reduction at full health from our Constitution passive. We're going to have increased healing. We have Defiant Stance to give us 50% damage reduction. We're just going to take so much little damage at full health. We're going to be dealing so much more damage at full health. It's just an overall great setup. Now, you might notice that I don't have an ultimate ability here. Now, in order to get an ultimate ability, we would have to go, I think we have to take this one, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we can actually take out a 0.1 here, but the problem with this is while blocking, reduce damage to all allies within 2 meters by 30%, 1 second cooldown. And then the one you really want is actually leadership. While holding a sword, all group members damage increased by 10%. This will be your dungeon. This is just a great. The problem is we would have to take points out of points here and put them into here. Now, if you want to come over here and maybe take a point out of, man, this is the problem. I spent so long actually on this tree. You could maybe take a point out of restoration and put a point down here in defensive formation if you have a healer and the healer is really good. But in my opinion, who's going to be standing within 2 meters of you? Who? Nobody should be standing within 2 meters of you when you're tanking. PvE, yeah, people are going to be, coming in and out, but it says while blocking. You can't just hold block in this game or you will die. In bosses and in PvE, you're just going to die. This ability to me is not that good. This ability is insane. Now, when I go into my end game tanking, this is going to be the ability you're going to want to get, because the tank and the healer in pretty much any PvE game is really there to buff the rest of the group. So this is going to be the ability you're going to want. So now I don't take it because we are going to be swapping. We have our Warhammer, which is cool, but these are just an overall insane amount of passives. A lot of the passes in here are so good that I just can't find a way to get all the way down here to get this. This is the more damage side, and we want all this tankiness over here. And think about this, we're still leaving out gain 15%, 15 stamina when hitting a target with a shield bash or shield rush. Cool. We're not getting when you block with a shield, all shield skills charge 1%. Cool. Stamina damage is reduced by 15% when blocking a melee attack. There's so many good passes we don't even get that it is almost impossible to justify coming over here to the leadership tree and grabbing this. But we will eventually, I believe, have the way to get over here and get this. All right, this video is super long, but we're going to go over here to the Warhammer, and we're going to go over this as fast as possible. So first, we are just going to go down and we're mainly going to get in this Crown Crusher tree. We are just going to, we're going to get Clear Out, down to Shockwave, down to Path of Destiny, and then just start filling in your passives. Now, I do like going down here and hitting a target with Clear Out grants Fortify, providing 10% defense bonus for 4 seconds to all friendlies within 6 meters. This is a lot better skill than the actual ultimate sword passive. This, to me, this is just a better version of it. Okay, then we do want to go over here. We want to get Trauma. The attack causes weakened. Look, oh look, we get weakened here. And then decreases the damage dealt from the target attacks by 10% for 10 seconds. Huge. And then I like this one as well. Just increases the media radius by 4%. We can go over here, and if you want to get some more, CC, we can get the Path Now Staggers. And then ability cooldowns reduced by 5% for each hit with Path Destiny. Great. And then just fill out the rest of the passives. We have increased damage absorption by 10% if surrounded by 2 or more enemies within 5 meters of a player. Then we have our 15% damage against targets affected by Warhammer debuffs, which is insane. We have regen, 35% of damage dealt as health while using a Crowd Crusher ability, which is the reason why we're sticking here in the Crowd Crusher tree. And then our ultimate, which is pretty insane. Whenever a target is affected by a crowd control effect, they are slowed for 20% for 4 seconds. Wow, that is great. We love this tree. This tree is just so good for especially PvE. And then we go over here and we're just getting passives. Increase armor penetration by 10%. We get gain empowered on a heavy attack, increasing attack damage by 20% for 4 seconds. Adds grit to every hammer heavy attacks and grants 20% damage reduction while heavy attack grit is active. Sort of like the Great Axe passive. We have on targets under 30% HP, increased damage done by heavy attacks by 20%, or 15%, sorry. And then cooldowns reduced by 7. Cooldowns are reduced by 7% with heavy attacks. And for 1 second after taking damage, deal 35% extra damage. So we're essentially on this tree. We're just getting some stuff from heavy attacks. We're getting some damage reduction. We're getting some pretty cool passives, but we are really, really reliant on this Crowd Crusher tree. Now for this, you can actually, I am going to level as medium armor. Now I'm going to stick with medium armor for as long as possible because we are not going to be in dungeons that much. We're just going to go to the dungeons as needed. And the medium armor gives us a little bit of extra damage, and it's going to give us some movement skills. You are going to have to move a lot in the dungeons. We will see once we get towards the end game if we want to start stacking our heavy armor. I imagine once we get to the end game, we are going to be in heavy armor, but we're going to stick with medium armor as much as possible. We want that extra movement skill or speed because we're just going to be running from town to town. Now, what I do in this case is I'm going to have some heavy armor in my bag so that if I need to swap out for heavy armor, we can just swap it out. While leveling, do not use heavy armor. Unless you are tanking, there is absolutely no reason to run heavy armor. If you're PvPing anybody not in heavy armor, you're never going to be able to catch him. If you're PvEing, you just want the extra damage. There's no need to really go out and put heavy armor on. So make sure you have medium armor on while you're leveling. You can even, I'm going to start with light as long as I possibly can too, because light just can give me faster, give me more damage, because we don't really care about how much damage we're taking, especially if we're in a group. So we'll be in medium armor on this build, and for as long as possible. We're going to go into the first dungeon, and we're going to have medium armor on. You can come watch on twitch.tv/Parfaxgaming. You're like, Parfax, you can't tank medium armor. Yeah, you can. Especially the early dungeons, you'll be able to tank medium armor. We'll be taunting, we'll be dodging, we'll be doing all that good stuff. All right, guys, thanks for watching. This was an insane, I haven't put out a video this long in forever, but I want to go in depth with both these. Like I said, we will not have a healer video out there, unfortunately, but I wanted to give you a very good melee build, and then I wanted to give you a sword and board tank build. I'm sorry for all of you, like rapier users and, all the other weapons, the muskets and stuff like that that I didn't get a chance to make. We maybe make one in the future, but I felt really confident in giving you guys these videos about these weapons because these are tried and true. They're all really good, and they're going to be absolutely insane when it comes to leveling your character in New World. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Watch me at twitch.tv/Parfaxgaming. We're going to be doing giveaways. We're going to be doing a bunch of stuff. Come and get y'all free stuff. All right, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.